Welcome back to the channel. Thank y'all for hanging with me on this Tuesday. So you will hear fall fishing compared to spring fishing, and I think that stems from shallow waters, probably where you want to put your boat, and that's most likely the consistent bite on your lake is shallow, around some type of cover, shade, grass, wood, whatever you got. And the fish are still going to sometimes use structure. It's going to be shallow structure, it's going to be a drain, it's going to be a point, and they're going to be bass doing bass stuff on those type places. But there's some big differences. The first one being that the fishing's considerably better in the spring. The good thing about the fall, though, is that you're going to have less people on the water. So if you live on one of those lakes that's historically popular, you're going to get a little bit more room out there. So you might catch a 7 pounder in the spring, but you're probably not going to get to go back to that spot like you would in the fall, where you can continuously go to the same places without having a boat sitting on them. And that all depends on where you live and in what you like about fishing. So you're going to get more scenery this time of year. Early spring, don't have any leaves even on the trees yet. But let's talk about the differences in fishing, because I think the best way to explain this is a soft plastic jerkbait, which is a really good springtime bait and probably one of my favorite fall time baits, and a hard jerkbait, which is good in the spring and good in the fall, good always, year round for the most part. But I want to talk about the differences in those baits, because I think that's probably the best way to explain fall fishing in comparison to spring, and all the differences between the two. So when I think of springtime fishing, you get a guide, you get a booklet that tells you what to do. The water temperature, the moon phase, and the water levels is going to dictate everything about the spring. You know when the water's in the high 40s, low 50s, that the bite's tough. You can pretty much count how many bites you're going to get in a day on one hand, and that's a good day. And the fish don't have to eat. They kind of are in a hibernation mode, seems like most of the time when the water's that cold. As it gets warmer, gets into that mid 50s, it should be going down. Bass should be coming. They should be shallow. They should be biting a chatterbait and a square bill and a spinner bait on the days when you have the right conditions. But it should be going on. If you're not getting bit, you're probably in the wrong part of the lake. And as it gets a little bit warmer, all your techniques that have been working all spring are going to start to dwindle down into like wacky rigs and straight Cincos stuff and flipping and all that. You really don't have a whole lot of options, but you're being guided in the right direction the whole way. The fall, it is just a hodgepodge of baits. It's a hodgepodge of type places. You're just covering water and putting your head down and grinding. The electronics aren't playing as much of a factor as they have the whole year. This is about just covering water, breaking down cover, finding the bait, finding the bass that are chasing the bait. So the fluke, for me, you can throw this in any depth. You can go throw this in 6 inches. You can take it out and weight it and minnow it like everyone's been doing with forward-facing sonar. So this bait, to me, goes everywhere and goes anywhere. That's what fall fishing is. Anywhere and everywhere. This bait works great, but is such a correct structure. We need the correct water temperature. We need the right conditions. I can't have sun with this bait. I want the water in the earlier part of the year to keep those fish in their pre-spawn, because this is more of a pre-spawn, structure, vertical type bait. So this is great when I know bass are on rocky points or on clay points and it falls off into deep water. This is going to be great for bass that are suspended and they're moving around on that type of structure. Very specific in a lot of the ways you catch them. This, it's like just go and get in shallow enough water and throw it. And that's pretty much what you have in the fall. Bass are moving shallow and you just got to go looking for them, and you got to go looking for them every single day. In the springtime, they're in a pre-spawn type spot. They're not going to leave until the water temperature tells them, and you can read that water temperature on your gauge, and you'll know why they left, and you'll know why they're still there, and you can consistently go back and catch them for weeks at times when the water temperature and everything is correct. So springtime, you are told what to do. You know where to go. You know what to do. You should have a good idea and not be lost a whole lot in the spring. Now, when it comes to water fluctuation and all that, that can make it a little confusing. On lakes that bass aren't real used to being on flats. So lakes that are steeper, highland mountain reservoirs that typically have deeper water. Bass relate to vertical structure a lot of times, or just swim out in the abyss for a lot of their lives. They're not real good with flats. So if you have screwy water fluctuation, that's going to mess them up. They're not used to being on flats. They don't necessarily know what to go. That's not a safe haven for them, like that bluff bank or out in the middle of the lake, out in the creek channels, out in the river channel, where they know where they're at and they know how to live and eat and do everything that they need to do. When they start getting around the flats, if the conditions and everything isn't perfect for them, they get weird. So that is springtime fishing, is you are told what to do. You know where to go. You know the perfect water temperature for this bait and everything. When it comes to the fall, there's no guidebook. There's no way of knowing what you need to be doing. Right now, we still have some fish that are summering and relating to structure, but that's going away. More and more bass are just going to head shallow. They're going to be out in the abyss. They're going to be around cover. You got to figure out the cover. You got to figure out pieces of wood that are holding the bass. You got to figure out the specific bait, because it's not just going to come down to one bait that's going to do all the damage for you. You got to figure out that as well. There's no, well, 55 degrees, that should mean chatterbait. 60, I can change the blades on my spinner bait. All right, now we're in the high 60s, mid 60s, so that should mean flipping. You don't get all that. You just got to go and guess and basically act the same way the fish do. They don't have anything on their mind but to feed. In the springtime, they got a lot of things on their mind. They got to find a clean pre-spawn hard bottom. They got to find a place where they can spawn. They got to find a mate. All those things that are dictated and are in that bass fishing guidebook. You don't get them. You just got to tie something on, turn the trolling motor on a certain speed that's going to be conducive to you covering water and looking for cover. So try that this fall. You're going to get the lake to yourself. Good luck to you, and I'll see you on the water.